Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. But he wants to know what resources are there for grief. He's got a grandmother, but I don't know. I didn't hear the first part of that. It's become so desperate. If this is a rerun, I will email Shannon, but it's not a rerun.
Right,
So
right.
what grief resources?
Oh my gosh, Parker, there are a lot of different resources for grief. Perhaps you can kind of reach out to us after and we can talk about it in regards to helping this particular person, because I think it's different depending on the situation they're in, right? The most important, I think, for people to learn about grief is kind of the stages of grief that we go through. They tend to be very similar, and I think it helps people who are very sad to realize that eventually they're going to pass from the depression and hopelessness into a whole new, stage, which is a new beginning, and that this kind of sadness and grief will actually go away. But depending on how severe the grief is, I would really recommend that, the person reaches out to a professional, like a psychologist, because sometimes it becomes really important to have someone who's a professional who can help you get through not just the stages, but also just kind of like learn from it and understand who yourself and how you're feeling. It's very tough to go through grief.
It's a 15-year-old whose father died. So his grandmother, I think, goes to Parker's church, and he died a few months ago, and it's just hitting the 15-year-old, and he started banging his head and saying, "I miss my daddy."
Yeah, so this is very, very tough, and I would really, really recommend that you try to find, for the grandmother, I mean, it's not hard to find a grief therapist. There are lots and lots of grief therapists, psychologists who focus and specialize in grief and depression. And I would recommend that you connect the grandmother to give the grandmother some of those resources, because as the grandmother learns more, the psychologist can help them give ideas for the 15-year-old. I assume, because you said they're banging their head, that it's a 15-year-old with autism, which means that you kind of need a dual specialization, someone who is a psychologist specializing in grief, but also understands autism a little bit. So I think that becomes more important for the grandmother to learn that. Now, given that I kind of know some stuff about grief and autism, I can give you, and I am a psychologist and a behavior analyst, I can give you some ideas. But the main thing is, it really depends on how much the individual, the 15-year-old, comprehends about death and what are they experiencing. The assumption is they're experiencing just missing their dad. That's the big thing, is the change of not having the father there and missing that individual. So the sooner I guess the concept is, give the person some self-soothing techniques. For example, allow the person, the 15-year-old, or teach them to have a location that is completely self-soothing. So I often recommend a huge bean bag with headphones that you can put on that are calming, soothing music, maybe even a video of something that the individual likes, but things that are soothing and calming, and allow the individual to spend more time doing that, less demands on the individual for the time being. But also, the sooner another individual can come into the picture and perhaps take over some of the role of the father, so that the child is missing that less, so that they are now getting a little bit more fulfillment from the new person doing those same activities perhaps, or coming in and helping, that will help. Now, I'm assuming the grandmother herself is going through grief, obviously, and how she feels and responds is going to affect the 15-year-old as well. So if the grandmother's crying and sad and on edge, that's also the 15-year-old's also going to feel that. So, you know, given that they're part of your church community, I would say it would be amazing for the church community to go and help. Just go to the house, be with the grandmother, be with the 15-year-old, try to do activities, and just with the passage of time and staying busy, keeping both of them occupied and busy, that's a huge help. People don't realize that when we have grief, we don't want to be alone. We do want others to come and be in our world because we're afraid. Grief is a lot of fear, and it's just, you know, you feel empty and just afraid and don't know what to do with yourself. And people being around you, just sitting with you, having a tea with you, watching TV with you, not allowing you to be alone, it really helps.
I love that. I went to an epic funeral that was for two people a few years ago. It was the mother died, and within 24 hours, her son died.
Oh my God!
And so they had a double funeral, 2 caskets, and there was so much, and it was both sudden in both cases, and there was so much grief. And one of the things that the pastor said was, it's important right now to just show up and be. Don't go and think that you're going to make them understand what happened.
You just need to be there.
There's no understanding. And I love that he said, I don't understand it. Do you understand it? Why do we have this need to, so that, like, somebody, whether it's someone on the spectrum or not, well, I'm not sure that they understand death. And you know, that's a good thing to be aware of, but that's not what your job is right now. Your job is to sit on the couch,
just be with them,
and be with them.
Yeah.
And that is a very powerful tool when you have somebody that
100%.
is in grief.
And I will always say, you know, I went through grief at one point in my life, and you become eternally grateful to the folks who are helping you just go through it.
Yep.
You know, and I was very, very blessed and lucky. I had 𝗟𝗄𝗃 BCBA-D, and I had Stan Kurtz, my dear old friend Stan, and both of them helped me tremendously go through it. And you know, you really just need someone to be with you.
Yeah.
So you can definitely do that, Parker.
There we are. Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.